All right, good afternoon. I want to welcome everybody to this panel discussion here at the Thai DC GovCon conference. This panel is one I've been really looking forward to. My name is Sumit Srivastava. I'm the board member at Thai DC chapter and just about to hit my 30th year in federal contracting. So very excited about the opportunity to have our distinguished guests here today. Our topic today is, I think, one very timely for a lot of folks. We're in budget cycles. We're starting to all think about our 21, 22 year, 2021, 22, 22 timeframe. And COVID has significantly changed the world for a lot of us. It's especially, I think, in the public sector arena, where there's been a long history of government contracting as one of the primary methods of execution for the technology industry in particular. And over the last couple of months, of course, this huge migration for a organization and a whole industry that heavily operated on a combination of really an integrated on-site environment, often between contractors and clients and agencies. And that has probably hit our industry a little bit more than others in terms of a culture change. And so really excited about the panelists that we have here today because they represent current and former executives within the federal industry who really have been leading the charge in many ways around technology modernizations, the digital imperative, the way contractor and clients operate together, and how to secure highly sensitive enterprises. And so if I could, I'd love to ask our three panelists to come online. And what we'll do today is start with a short introduction. So you get a context of their background, where they're coming from. And then we'll start the Q&A. We'll definitely leave time at the end. Make sure in the chat feature, if you have questions, start putting them in there, and we'll make sure we try to get to as many as we can when we're done. So with that, I'd like to start. If Rob, maybe you could provide a brief intro, that'd be great. Rob, you're muted.
Let's try it now. How's that?
Perfect.
Is that working? All right. Hey, listen, Sumit, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate with you guys. I'm currently a partner at the Kroll & Mooring law firm in Washington, D.C. That is the largest government contracts group in the United States, believe it or not. So we got lots of lawyers, roaming the halls. But I work with all types of contractors. I work with small contractors, large contractors, but primarily in the IT industry, because let's face it, that's where most contractors are focused on, our IT procurement opportunities in the federal government. My practice is primarily focused not on bid protests and that type of work. It's actually resolving informal disputes and problems with the agencies, because I work with a lot of the procurement officials in the agencies, just as I did when I was in the government. I work on acquisition reform legislation, and I do a lot of work with small companies and even large ones in helping them market to the United States government, trying to develop these key relationships that are so important as you try to increase your footprint in the federal space. Prior to working at Kroll & Mooring, I was in the government for 30 years. I cannot believe I'm this old. And I ended my career at the Office of Federal Procurement Policy at OMB, fondly known as OFPP. And that is the organization that puts in all these policies and regulations, and all these headaches that are created come from my old office. Yeah, GSA plays a role too, Chris, not just OFPP, but OFPP does play a big role in the federal procurement process. And I had the opportunity to chair what's called the Federal Acquisition Regulatory Council, the Chief Acquisition Officers Council. And as a consequence, I've developed a lot of relationships with procurement officials at virtually every federal agency. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that now that I'm in the private sector, I'm still doing sort of the same thing I did in the federal government. I'm working a lot with these same great people in the federal government. It's just it's been a great career in many ways to have had that government career and now have the opportunity to work in the private sector. It's been a nice combination. And pivoting today's topic, Sumi, just to pivot to today's topic, there's no question that the challenges of COVID are here to stay. Some of these things that are happening now, I think they are going to set a precedent for the future in many ways, which is what we're going to be discussing today. But I think in many ways it's going to be harder. I think it's going to be harder to deal with the government. It's harder to communicate with the government. It's always been difficult. And I think it's going to be even more challenging for contractors, especially if they're new ones to the marketplace that are trying to develop these relationships that are so important. I'm afraid it's going to be even more challenging now as we come out of the COVID pandemic. I think we're going to have some of the bad practices, if I should say, that maybe have been created during this time. I think it's going to be hard, I think, for the government to shed some of those practices, but that's what we need to work on. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Sumi.
Thank you, Rob. That's perfect. And we'll definitely pull some threads there. Glenn?
Good day, everyone. My name is Glenn Hernandez. Career Coast Guard, finished up my duties as the SSO of the Coast Guard. It was a pure privilege to serve the American public and the maritime public in protecting and really providing that mission across the globe. Had the opportunity to do major acquisitions, do some intelligence work in partnership with DoD, and had the opportunity to really serve the public interagency operations. And so last 3 years, I've been helping industry overcome some of the challenges, just like Rob had mentioned. It's all about the relationships, and with my understanding with the Defense Department and with the Department of Homeland Security and other agencies, it's been my privilege to really help those companies that seek my assistance through Op-Edge, where we really try to deliver the operational edge. And I really agree with Rob, in this COVID period, it's going to be difficult for small businesses starting out, trying to gain that relationship with the agencies. But there are ways that I see right now in trying to overcome some of those challenges through some of the things that I'm seeing. And I look forward to sharing more. And one other thing I'd like to share is that I'm on several boards and committees, notably with AFCEA, Armed Forces Communications Electronics Association International. So they have a large professional organization membership around the globe, and I'm on many of their committees. I'm also on their subcommittee for cyber workforce and zero trust strategies. And so I do a lot of nonprofit volunteer just to try and lead organizations overcome some of the lexicon that we see across our industries, and trying to help organizations trying to get on a better footing. But thank you, Sumit, for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. All right, Crystal.
Sure. Hi, how are you? Good to be with everyone. And I am in the GSA right now in the Federal Acquisition Service. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Enterprise Strategy Management. And so that means I've got a couple of things under my purview. One of those is the government-wide category management, PMO. And so we work very closely with OFPP and do a lot of implementation of some of those policies. Also run the Acquisition Gateway. If anyone out there is familiar with that resource, the Multiple Award Schedule, PMO, is under my organization as well. So we did a great, successful consolidation of our multiple award schedules last year. And we are in the last phase of that, just trying to shore up and create single contracts for some of the bigger contractors that had many multiple contracts. In addition to those things, I am the executive sponsor for the Federal Marketplace Strategy, which is GSA's plan to modernize and simplify that buying and selling experience. So really, we hear all the time about how painful it is to navigate the acquisition process, right? And how challenging that is. So and we hear from suppliers how they want more help with that experience, and how inconsistent that experience is. So this Federal Marketplace Strategy is really focused on improving that process for suppliers, as well as the ease and value for buyers. So really bringing buyers and suppliers together, and doing that in a way that makes it a lot easier through this digital experience that we're pulling together. And that is, it's really, we have the same challenge that so many other agencies have right now in trying to very quickly launch some digital tools that are meaningful to people, and make a difference in this space. And I think one of the things that excites me most is that GSAs really started to embrace a much more customer-focused mindset as we try to do that. And we do consider suppliers customers, right? This is, I mean, we get a lot of intel from suppliers about what agencies are out there asking for. People are out talking to agencies all the time. So it's very helpful to us to have that connection with suppliers. And we want to make sure that we're making it as easy as possible, and that we're really decreasing the cost of doing business with the government as they participate in this federal marketplace ecosystem. So that one of the key roles of that too that I hope we can talk about is the role of data in doing that, and how important it is to make sure that your data is organized behind the scenes so that you can present that to folks online in a way that makes that very transparent and creates great self-service opportunities. And so I am also running data governance inside the Federal Acquisition Service, and trying to really pull that data together in a way that makes it easier to work with and more accessible to all of our analysts, all of our data analysts, as well as to self-service applications.
Cool. Thank you very much. And actually, that's probably a great place for us to start, Crystal, is, for a lot of agencies, I think one of the biggest impacts to COVID has been sort of bringing this imperative of IT modernization, digital services, the digital native user to the fore. You started talking about it, and you said you'd like to be able to talk more. Can you speak to what exactly you guys are doing in that space and plans for the future? And as context, I think when we were talking in advance, we've got watchers. Basically, we have attendees that are generally in the small business space, generally in the services space. And I'd say that there are as many that are trying to figure out how to get in and how to engage in this marketplace as there are who are those that are already engaging. So with that context, if you could speak more to some of your plans.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I will say that there are so many agencies out there that are doing things right now that they never thought they would do, right? And I just heard Census say last week that they had a self-reporting on the census of about 67% of households, and 80% of that was electronic. It's a huge shift for them. They've never done an electronic census, right? And so agencies who have to serve all Americans, or taxpayers or farmers or veterans, right? Whatever their constituency is, a lot of them were focused on that population that had either no or limited access to internet. And so they were sort of dragging their feet on their digital presence. And so they're figuring out at this point how beneficial it is, right? You see the success of farmers.gov and understanding how beneficial it is to really bring more digital services to their constituencies. So we're doing a couple of things at GSA that help with that. So one of the things that we just closed actually was it's our Astro contract, and that is put out by our Assisted Acquisition Service FedSim organization, who does a lot of the very big contracts with DoD. And this is a contract actually that established a multiple award contract that provides a variety of services for unmanned, manned, and optionally manned platforms and robotics. So, think drones. And other kinds of robotics, but that it was open from August 24th through the 30th of October, and it's currently in evaluation. But that's a big one and a big win, I think, for DoD. We have Polaris that is pending release right now, a solicitation right now. We had a survey go out that closed on the 30th of October to try to get a sense from our industry and others in the ecosystem about what they'd like to see in a new IT small business contract. But the kind of things we're thinking about with Polaris is looking at on-ramps potentially with open season on-ramps, which we had not done on Alliance Small Business previously. We're also looking at increased competition at the task order level. So not pricing at the master contract level. We have authority to do that now. And that's actually a lot of larger businesses with a lot of products appreciate that, because it's very time consuming and expensive for them to maintain all that contract pricing, and maintain that catalog they have. And this Polaris contract will also be very focused on sort of emerging and evolving technologies, in a way, in addition to some of the more standard IT that we'd like to have on there. I will say also that the GSAs, Office of Small and Disadvantaged Businesses, really they have a lot of training available. They help small businesses better position themselves for opportunities. They have training on things like developing a federal marketing plan, identifying federal customers through the federal procurement data system. We also have a small business dashboard on a site called D2D. It's our data to decisions. It's d2d.gsa.gov. And under the government-wide category management page, you can find a small business dashboard that will tell you if an agency has met their small business goals or not. So, which is good intel, right? For folks, if you know an agent, it's getting toward the end of the year and you know an agency hasn't met their small business goals, lots of opportunity for you to go market in that area. We also have a small business forecasting tool that is on the acquisition gateway. And that is, a number of agencies use that to actually put out early forecasts of opportunities that might be coming up for small businesses. And so that's an opportunity to look for contracting opportunities. We are using also a couple of interesting policy authorities. The commercial solutions opening is available now, and we got that authority in the 2017 NDAA, and it's a pilot program for us. It provides a streamlined acquisition process, simplified contract terms. So it's really aimed at startup companies or companies who have not worked with government before, and it can be FAR-based or not FAR-based, if that means anything to you. So it's a much streamlined acquisition process. The Small Business Innovation Research is another pilot that we're in the middle of right now. It was actually launched in May of 2018, and I don't have recent numbers, but this is I've got numbers through January 2020. We've put, and through then we put out 22 different awards of phase 3 contracts through this program that totaled about $910 million. And this is a program that's really focused on enabling small businesses who have interesting technology potential projects, and in the R&D space particularly, and then enabling them to commercialize those solutions that they build for the government. So lots of different programs. At the same time, we're trying to make sure, as these innovative technologies are coming out, that we have supply chain risk sort of shored up. And so we've got a lot of programs for supply chain risk, trying to ensure our customers that our products are solid, that they are compliant with all of the requirements in that realm, and that just helps everybody.
Absolutely, a lot to unpack there. So I will say that I may just for our attendees, if I can reach out to you later, there's quite a few sites and sources that you mentioned, and maybe package those up so we can get it out to everybody. But as a great transition, and you know, with supply chain risk, I'm going to ask Glenn if you could. We've talked about this imperative to modernize and move legacy to the cloud. We've talked about this focus on a digital native, and in particular with COVID now, a remote workforce that brings kind of your area more to the fore, the whole cyber CISO space. What are you seeing with regards to how agencies are dealing with that right now, and what you're telling your clients and contractor community to focus on as far as their offerings go?
Sure. Thank you, Sumit. So I want to go to Crystal's comment on supply chain before I went into the other issues. Certainly on the Department of Defense side, there's the cyber maturity model certification program, which is a component of the DFARS that they're trying to implement. And so that's one of the ways that I see agencies trying to overcome some of the supply chain risk by instilling more stringent practices into their processes for acquisition, so that, you know, as the operators and the technologists implement those services and products into their enterprise, they're assured at least some level of understanding of what the security process has gone into assess those services and products. And so I see that possibly being adopted more broadly, because as a security practitioner, you want to see best practices in areas of government and organizations really propagate more. And zero trust is one of those areas that I'm sort of curious about as organizations try to implement more strict security strategies to overcome some of the significant challenges. And the COVID period has brought on those challenges for agencies. So going back to your question, Samit, I do see with the COVID, right, like Crystal mentioned, agencies have to adopt practices that they probably talked about in their technology roadmaps for many years, but now they're having to realize it in very short order. And so what I see is the migration to the cloud, which has been going on for many years, as really being supercharged and really moving forward. The hangups that I see in some of the implementations are the legacy operational systems that don't necessarily translate very well to cloud adoption, because there's a lot of on-prem equipment and a lot of equipment that just can't be software engineered for the cloud immediately. And so that integration is sort of key. So for your audience, I think the key for those that are really trying to aspire to gain those type of relationships is really understanding the operational mission of those agencies. And so that when you have a product or a service that's innovative, you want to be able to understand how that applies, because, as myself and my government colleagues, they're so busy, right? They're confronted with so many challenges every day, right? And trying to prioritize how they're going to, provide the right amount of investment, because you don't have the opportunity to rip and replace, right? Though GSA can offer us all the tools that we have access to, unfortunately, agencies will not have the resources, the funding, or even the imperative, if it's operational versus administrative and technical, it's always going to tend towards the operational mission first. And so trying to find that right balance to overcome the technical challenges is key. And so I would advise your audience to really look at the strategic mentions by the agencies, right? They put out their technical challenges very overtly. The administration puts out their strategies, like, for example, the critical emerging technology strategy, right? That's going to, drive overall agency adoption further on. And it comes really from a strategy standpoint, but then at some level, it's going to have to translate down to real physical, technical, logical implementation. And that's where understanding the operations of the agency is crucial. And so as you're trying to find your niche to try and provide that investment, trying to understand how can you fit your technology or innovation into their cloud adoption model or into their zero trust adoption model, because there's so many different ways. But if you don't understand the operational mission, I think you're not going to be as lifted up to a higher priority or really get the interests of the agencies to really consider a relationship.
That's great, Glenn. I'm definitely going to pull a thread there, and but if it's okay, I'm going to come back to that and maybe give Rob a chance, because you've teed up Rob really well for a question that we wanted to ask him, which is, you've spent your career looking at ways to connect the community, right, the supplier community with the agencies through acquisition implementations, and we've seen, in the technology space in particular, a lot of the utilization, and both Crystal and Glenn talked about it, sort of non-traditional methods for how agencies are accessing technical talent. And Glenn just sort of talked about how you understand the mission. Can you speak to what you've seen with those trends and things like the creation of DIUX, now DIU, OTAs, pitch challenges? Do you see this one as the new norm? And then how are you advising people to evolve their strategies to be able to access or get accessed by those kinds of vehicles?
We know it's interesting. I think this is one of the good things that have happened with respect to the pandemic. We're using emergency procurement flexibilities much more. Now, it's nothing new. These weren't just invented yesterday. These procurement flexibilities have been on the books. Actually, a lot of them were put on the books after 9/11, after Hurricane Katrina, a lot by my old office, Office of Federal Procurement Policy, when I was there. And I have always struggled with why they're only used in emergencies. And I do believe that the effective use of these flexibilities has really shown that maybe they should be used not just in emergencies, but all the time. I mean, why not go ahead and do things faster, more efficiently, and so forth? At least with some of the procurement flexibilities, I think they should be used in a standard situation, not just in necessarily an emergency situation. So, for example, um, OTAs, which are now sort of called OTs. That's the new lingo now. Um, the uh, uh, the whole idea is to get away from the FAR, get away from all these burdensome regulations, and actually act more like a commercial contractor. Sit down and negotiate terms and conditions for the contract. I mean, that's really what OTAs were all about from the very beginning. And we've seen the usage increasing dramatically over the years. And certainly in this COVID situation, we've seen a lot more usage of them. But here's the problem. The problem, Sumit, is agencies have trouble being innovative, right? And they have trouble using commercial terms and conditions. So they always like to fall back on the FAR because that's what they're used to. They feel comfortable. They feel like it's low risk. They like those FAR clauses because that's what they're used to using. So guess what? We've seen these FAR clauses sort of coming right back in to OTs. They don't negotiate them out. And my tip for advice to industry really would be to push back. You really do need to push back because the idea was not to have all these FAR requirements. It was to be more commercial like. And so I think that you need to push back during the negotiations of these OTs, and they're usually for research and development projects. You try to get commercial terms and conditions as opposed to necessarily some of these government unique requirements that you see in the FAR. That was the whole idea. And I think that the usage of some of these vehicles makes a lot of sense. We've also seen an increase in sole source procurements. That's good and bad, right? We've seen a lot of increase in sole source procurements. I caution contractors to be very, if you're not on the winning side, you should be very wary. And you should be looking and pressing agencies to post, as they're required to do by the FAR, they're required to post the sole source justifications. I've found agencies not doing that, or they're there for a very short period of time and then they're removed. It's really important to have that transparency and for agencies to be able to explain why they're doing sole source, and maybe it's perfectly legitimate. And on occasion, we have found questionable activity in that regard. And I am concerned. It's one trend I've seen during COVID where the agency has moved so quickly with sole source procurements that I think competition has suffered. And I think some of the sole source procurements, quite frankly, have been done inappropriately. GWACs, you're familiar with GWACs, the government-wide contracting vehicles, which are exclusively for IT services. We've seen a dramatic increase during COVID with respect to the use of GWACs. But again, this was a trend that was already there. Since 2015, we've seen a dramatic increase with GWACs. I think it's gone from less than $1 billion in 2015 to over $7.5 billion in 2019. That was before COVID. So we haven't seen the 2020 figures yet, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with GWACs. And last but not least, especially for small contractors, we have seen the purchase card used much more during COVID. The purchase card, of course, is for micro purchases. It's only for small amounts, but it's not necessarily that small. And during COVID, it's in an emergency situation. One of the procurement flexibilities that agencies have is to increase that micro purchase threshold from 10,000 to 20,000. So we saw it going up double during the pandemic. And we've seen usage of e-marketplaces such as Amazon increase dramatically. A lot of agencies, believe it or not, were getting their personal protective equipment, such as gloves and hand sanitizers, through e-marketplace platforms, commercial e-marketplace platforms. And I think small businesses, this is a huge opportunity. If you're on one of these commercial e-marketplaces, you have an opportunity to really get into the federal marketplace without a lot of all of the rules and regulations, because they're micro purchases and none of those rules and regulations apply to micro purchases. At least we hope to keep it that way. And I think that is an incredible, great way for commercial small businesses who have not been working in the government to get their foot in the door through these commercial e-marketplace platforms, and GSAs taking a leadership role and actually trying to pilot the uses of them in a more robust way. And they're doing a pilot now, and hopefully years from now, we're going to see the government using these e-marketplaces in a much more robust fashion. And that will increase opportunities for small businesses dramatically. Because believe it or not, there are more small businesses on these commercial platforms than large businesses.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'll turn
And
back to you.
thank you, Rob. No, and Crystal or Glenn, if you have anything to add, I was thinking here, Crystal, for you, as we think about all these tools, we think about sort of the trends. You sit in a pretty unique position. I mean, I think arguably the largest buyer in the world, right, is what GSA represents effectively. And as you see what's coming through your shop and how you guys are helping agencies, other agencies, and sort of the federal marketplace in general, are there any budget trends or things that you're seeing right now in terms of what's coming forward to you that, once again, from our attendee side, they can be thinking about as they think about 21 and 22? Are there trends that you can extrapolate off of that?
Yeah, well, as Rob mentioned, the commercial marketplaces are really interesting. We've got a good chunk of agencies participating in this pilot right now, and you know, starting to, what we found, which was interesting, was that a lot of folks were already using these platforms. This gives us a way to get the data about how people are using it and understand better about how these are being used in government. So the agencies that are participating really like that benefit and are looking forward to that. But I'll tell you what I have seen from agencies and heard from them is just a lot of change at an increasing speed, right? As all of us are experiencing. And everybody's talking about the new normal and what the post-COVID world will look like. And focus really on those digital interactions, how customers are going to be interacting with the in that digital space, data analytics and securing data. It's getting huge. There's a ton of businesses out there that are selling data analytics and data platforms. So, folks really, if they're in that space, really need to have a strong niche or have a very strong business strategy around whether they're going to, be out front with their offerings, whether they're going to partner, how they're going to do that. I've been really happy hearing from agencies, because most folks are starting with what are those business questions? What real business value can they get out of that? And so, to Glenn's point about starting with strategy, that's going to be really important if you're going in to talk with agencies about how you can help in that space, to start with the strategy and start with what those big business questions might be for them, or big mission questions, right? I would also say that agencies are, really, because everything is moving so digitally, focused on the authentication, the access control, making sure that they are securely delivering those services, that they can really protect that individual's identity online. And that is really, really critical. Adversaries have completely changed their tactics in the way that they're trying to hit at these government services. And COVID has really increased the attack surface, right? Because everything is going online and so digital. So, the amount of data that's going through everybody's pipes is bigger, all the APIs, the Intel feeds. So, you're looking at a huge amount of data and needing to continually establish trust as you're dealing with all of that data. And And so figuring out how to do role-based access is going to be really critical going forward, and doing that at a way where you can identify threats to that access at decision speed is going to be critical going forward. And so I think the security space and the cyberspace is really blowing up right now as well. Focusing on that data that's coming through, the integration of that data is really essential. So that's a whole nother sort of skill set that that companies can bring to the table. It's very complicated, but focusing on that data architecture and security in place or at the data layer, as we're hearing from NIST and from CISA. Just that's going to really help these agencies focus on automating all of their processes, improving their experiences, improving their lag times, and they do that through more tools, right? So if you are a company that's offering these kinds of the cloud services, cloud tools, focusing in those areas, I think is going to be really strong going forward.
Hey, so
Absolutely.
this is Glenn.
Yeah,
I
go ahead,
wanted to
Glenn, please.
comment on Crystal's words about the access. And so one of the things I would like to add for your audience is that access is not the only thing that's needed. It's like, if you're going to have a holistic zero trust strategy for your organization and for the access to that data, right, you have your identity components, right, so that you can ensure the data of the folks that are accessing the network. But on the other end, on the data side, you need some kind of data tagging or data categorization strategy as well, because having all the data but no tagging to align it with that role-based access or strategy to access that data, it's difficult to align the two to provide that cohesive environment. So you have that zero trust transactional line to minimize the surface attack area of your environment. And so I just wanted to comment on that. The other thing I wanted to mention was when companies are trying to understand how to gain a footing with agencies, I would advise them to look at consortiums and other OTA groups that are trying to get like-minded organizations that really want to appeal to organizational operations and trying to get together, and they'll work together to try and advertise those opportunities so that folks can leverage also with professional organizations like I'm part of, because I really believe that it's a public-private partnership together to solve the challenges of the nation is really where it's going to head, because government really needs industry's assistance through their innovation and access to technologies to overcome some of the traditional government challenges that I saw it over my career, leapfrog, for where we used to develop things on site where industry was leapfrogging us. And so the traditional acquisition model was not serving us well to really be innovative and get technologies out there to our operators.
I would just say, if you're thinking of those types of partnerships, I would throw in academia. We've been approached a lot by academia partnering with companies to offer up those kinds of solutions or test beds for those kinds of solutions, including zero trust networking. So it's a good partnership opportunity.
Yeah, and it's really risky to put out really leading edge technologies onto production enterprise models, because you're risking your operations with a failure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And time has just flown by. It's 2:40. So you both are pulling on a thread that I like to ask Rob about. Rob, your practice, you mentioned it earlier, you speak to helping companies collaborate with the client base. And certainly COVID has sort of enhanced those challenges, right? We've had a whole industry that for years has really relied on the close working relationship, on-site working relationship, and everything that goes with national security, defense, national healthcare missions, social services. What are you seeing that is, you alluded to it earlier about some of the behavior that you were worried about, but what are you seeing in terms of trends there, and what can vendors do, which are predominantly our audience, in terms of helping manage that better?
Well, I think it's a huge issue, Samit, and I have to give credit to GSA. GSA is very transparent. They communicate well with industry, but I deal with almost every federal agency, and that's not the case everywhere. And I have unfortunately seen some unbelievable situations of lack of communication, lack of transparency through this, especially with this COVID. I mean, I call somebody and then we got to get a voicemail. It says, "I'm out for the pandemic, send me an email." In other words, I'm not going to answer my phone, okay? And I'm like, "What?" And then I called somebody else and they're like, "Hey, the voice message box is full." And I unfortunately had this guy's cell phone, and I said, "Hey, what's with your voice message? It says my voice message box is full." He said, "Well, I haven't been in 7 months. I haven't had time to clean it up. I haven't had a chance to clean it up." Well, I didn't understand that either. Why do you have to be at home to clean up your mail? In the office to clean up your voicemail? I mean, I give these just as examples of just an array of frustrations that I personally have experienced, but my clients have experienced also. Uh, the government has never been good about communicating with industry. It's absolutely imperative. One thing I've seen in my career, there are fewer disputes if there's good communication between government and industry. Lack of communication usually leads to formal contract disputes, which nobody wants. And it's really a shame. Market research is required by the FAR, and market research really, to be effective, has to be robust communications. We are not seeing that. Actually, we had trouble even seeing that before COVID, but now with COVID, it's even less. We're not having in-person meetings, and I think personal contact is really important. Face-to-face meetings, I think, is critical for developing these relationships. We're not seeing that. We're having virtual industry days, which is really not good. It's just simply not effective. Our clients are extremely frustrated with virtual industry days. And so, Meet, I think that a lot of this is here to stay because I know some agencies are already looking at reducing their lease space in major cities across the country. GSA was already moving to somewhat of a work at home environment even before COVID. Again, they do it better than other agencies. These agencies are having trouble transitioning to the work at home environment. And my old office, the Office of Federal Procurement Policy, had identified this many years ago as a serious problem, the lack of communication. They went out with a series of policy memos called Mythbusters, trying to break the myths or bust the myths with respect to contracting officers thinking, "Well, I can't communicate. I can't communicate or talk. I can't meet. I can't meet in person with contractors because it would look funny." Where did that rule come from? Where would that rule come from? So the whole idea of having robust market research, actually talking face to face with contractors, is really critical. And my advice in this regards to me would just be to be very aggressive, just push, because eventually a lot of these restrictions will lift with respect to in-person meetings. But the government, I think, is sort of liking these telephone calls and not having in-person meetings. So I think that we have to be very diligent and very aggressive, um, trying, especially for companies who don't have a foothold in an agency currently, because if you already have a relationship, it's not quite as serious for you. But if you don't have a relationship currently, that in-person meeting is absolutely critical. And it's really critical for the government too, because that's the only way you're really going to get good information on capabilities of companies and what the innovative market solutions are that are out there. It's really hard to do just through email communications. So I've seen this as a negative with respect to COVID, and I see a trend going in the wrong direction. I also see retirements. I think a lot of people in the federal government won't be coming back to their offices after this ends. They're going to retire. A lot of government people are eligible to retire. So there'll be a whole new crop of people. So it's really important for us in industry, right, to train the new crop of people to understand the importance of talking to industry directly and having good relationships and direct in-person meetings, because I think it's critical for the health of our acquisition system. I really do.
Absolutely. We've been talking retirements and the wave coming a long time. This may have just accelerated that. And I will just add, as a contractor ourselves, and this is anecdotal, probably not driven by data, but your reference to the idea that with communication is really our interpretation of that right now and extrapolation of that for planning purposes is it's much better for incumbents because you already have the relationship.
Right.
And trying to grow into new agencies, if you're already in some, has been very hard because you got to build. All of you have spoken to relationships and how you build those. So so we're getting close to running out of time. There have been some questions coming in. One, Crystal, I'm going to direct to you. How will the Quality Service Management Office competition for selected products, especially for cyber, affect the buying patterns in government?
So the QSMOs are an interesting issue, little blip here. There's supposed to be 14 of them standing up. All of them are going to have an acquisition solution, presumably. I've been working very closely with the Treasury QSMO on the financial side, and really they're intended, for instance, in that instance, to bring together and start to standardize some of the requirements around financial systems, right? So that's really the intention of all of these, is in these areas, start to standardize the requirements a little bit so that we're not all over the place in our purchasing in these areas. But what we are trying to do really is use things like schedules and so that people who are already on the GSA schedule would be able to compete for, say, BPAs that would fuel these QSMOs, the buying in these QSMOs. So, we are looking at trying to do onboarding of companies before, before a BPA gets competed, so that people have opportunity to compete for that BPA. So, so that's that's sort of the strategy around those QSMOs, is make it as broad as make the competition as broad as possible, while starting to standardize the requirements, right? So don't shrink the industry pool, shrink the requirements, but make the industry pool as broad as possible.
Great, thank you. So we're right over time, and I'm feeling bad. There's just so much more to pull a thread on here. But I want to thank you all once again for giving us the time this afternoon. Normally we'd be in person. We'd have an opportunity to give you a memento of your support. In lieu of that, we are doing donations to charities as part of TIE DC to reflect the support and service that you all have been providing. So thank you again for your time, and really appreciate you supporting our organization like this. So I'm going to hand it back off to either Jennifer or Ravi at this point. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, panel. Thanks, that was great. Thanks, Amit. All right, we are heading into the later part of our day here, and we just have a few announcements that we want to share with you, including a talk with Mr. Ravi Puli from our TIE DC Board of Directors, who's going to talk to us a little bit about membership in our organization. So, Ravi, are you with us?
Yep, Jennifer, I'm here.
Oh, great. So you can go ahead, and I'll advance some slides for you.
Yeah,
And
please
you
go to the
can
next
go ahead.
one. Yeah, great. So hello, everyone. Thank you to all the panelists and moderator, sponsors, and the team that was put together a great event here. I just want to talk about TIE and its membership opportunities and how you can support TIE. So as most of you know, that TIE was started in 1992. Today, there are about 15,000 members all over the world, about 61 chapters in 14 countries. And TIE's mission statement is to mentor, educate, network, incubate, and invest into companies. And we have several programs here. As most of you know, that we have a TYE program, which is for the high school students, and then we have TIE University for university students to start up, where they can get mentoring and coaching help. We have a TIE Women program, and then we have TIE Angels, where you can invest into startups, and then we have various other special interest groups, so depending on what you are looking for. And so we are now running a promotion of our membership. Whoever joins as a charter member, they would be given a 2 months of free membership of this year, and then you would be getting 2 years of membership for 2021 and 2022. So how you can support TIE? You can become a member as a charter member or an emerging entrepreneur membership, and then you can also become a corporate member, or you can also be a sponsor. Or you can also, of course, attend these events and then spread the good word about entrepreneurship. And also you can exclusively sponsor an event or become an annual sponsor. So there are multiple ways that you can be in the network of TIE and support and become a member. We also have a student membership, which is very very useful for the students, because there are so many events that we have that are geared up for learning about entrepreneurship, and that is only about $25 a year. And if somebody would like to attend any of our future events, you can also join as a guest, and you can reach out to Jennifer, or you can reach out to one of the board members, whoever is doing that event, or you can reach out to me if you have any specific questions about membership or organization. And as you know, that TIE DC is the chapter here, but once you become a charter member, you get access to all the chapters across the world. There are about 61 chapters, as I said, in 14 countries. There is also TIE Global Summit coming up, which is again, put together with a combination of all the chapters. And please go to, our website and, find more information about it. And we're looking forward to see you on other panels, and looking forward to see you in person, as soon as, we are back to our normal days. And Jennifer, would you like to add anything else in this about membership?
Nope, just please contact either Ravi or myself, and we're happy to get you integrated into our wonderful community.
Yes, yes. And thank you all once again, for joining us, and we're looking forward to have the rest of the GovCon event. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And we also like to take this time to thank again our wonderful sponsors for supporting our organization, and that does include Harmonia as our platinum sponsor. And so here's a few words from Harmonia. I'd also like to take this time to offer an opportunity for everybody to join us in our networking event that's happening after our last session today from 3:30 to 4:15, sponsored by Bank of America. So please do join us in that wonderful event. Thank you also to our bronze sponsor, Navitas.
As enterprises strive to capitalize on disruptive technologies, they must be agile and ready to transform their services into faster, more responsive processes in order to meet growing demands and challenges. You must choose a partner that delivers transformation driven by expert talent. A partner that is robust yet personalized, disciplined yet flexible, collaborative, and innovative. Navitas provides a perfect combination of technology, people, innovation, and expertise. As experts in multi-cloud, with services in digital engineering, data, and artificial intelligence, we'll use the breadth and strength of our capabilities to help you improve speed, achieve desired outcomes, and reduce costs. As the demand for an agile infrastructure and dependence on the cloud rises, Navitas will guide and accelerate your multi-cloud adoption with an infrastructure that is supported by the new multi-cloud operating model with end-to-end automation. Designed for flexibility and to evolve as your demands grow, we use the most advanced technologies and our strategic roadmaps to modernize legacy applications and adopt digital technologies that will transform your business. To ensure operational efficiency at a lower cost, flexibility to work across multi-cloud platforms, and improved decision-making support, Navitas will help build a unified data platform with machine learning and advanced analytics that can help you garner timely insights and do more with the data. We believe accelerators are a powerful asset for any business, which is why we created our own. Since 2006, we've built Washington, D.C.'s premier professional services network that has a reputation for delivering quality that is fit for the future. We celebrate our team's talents and strive to enhance their potential, allowing us to attract and keep the sharpest minds with the most impactful skills. Our extensive network and vibrant culture are our greatest strengths and the foundation of our services, and we can't wait to welcome you into it. Innovation, delivery excellence, and expertise are the building blocks in Navitas solutions. We are committed to working side by side with you, personalizing our services and tailoring our processes to help you realize your visions and achieve your most challenging goals today and in the future.
Thank you, Navitas, for sponsoring.
As
TIDC
enterprises
Capital.
strive to cap.
My apologies. And at this time, we'd also just like to thank all of our sponsors today for their support. It's invaluable to us, and we really do appreciate it.